Well, if you homeschooled your children during the pandemic, you certainly weren't alone. There was a massive explosion of homeschooling during that time. But with the pandemic over, many thought this boom would fizzle. And in states like Colorado, that was in fact the case. However, a new study found that 90% of states that report homeschooling enrollment found increases for the 2023 to 2024 academic year. In Louisiana, for example, you'll note a steady increase in homeschooling before the pandemic that actually continued afterward. And the trend of growth ranging anywhere from 8% in Wyoming to nearly 70% in places like Rhode Island. Now, recently, NewsNation Live host Marni Hughes was joined by a professor at Johns Hopkins School of Education to talk about why many families decide to stick with homeschooling.
That is the question, and we don't know the answer to that. We have been looking at it. What we do see here is that this is not a regional trend. This is something that's occurring all across the country. It's not a red state, blue state issue. We see it going on everywhere. So we're really looking to dig into what exactly is causing not only families to not to return to the traditional public schools, but we are now seeing in last year's estimates, we're seeing an increase in people leaving the traditional public schools for homeschooling.
And do we know the reason for the leaving? I mean, is it resources? Is it specific to the family? You know, my kid struggles in this area, you're not providing it. What are some of the lists of reasons that people choose home is better?
Right. The list depends on the family. And so what you say is correct. Some families, we see huge concentrations of students with special needs in homeschooling. So families with students who their needs may not be met in the traditional public setting, or for whatever reason, the home is a better place for them. They are choosing homeschooling. We see large concentrations also of gifted and talented students in homeschooling. Students' primary concern for parents is safety. This is what they report most often as their reason for homeschooling, and that can look like lots of different things, from physical safety to bullying to racism and various concerns of that nature.
As you do your research, what are some of the supports that homeschooling families now have that they maybe didn't have a decade or so ago, as we see more people turn to that option?
Right. So the old homeschooling community had to be really dedicated because there weren't a lot of supports for them. Now, though, we see all kinds of technologies and AI and curriculum companies marketing and tailoring things specifically for the homeschool community. So that's something that has been very different. We also see a huge influx of hybrid schools and co-ops, and micro-schooling now is becoming extremely popular. These look much more like traditional models where students go to school a few days a week with peers, and then they're homeschooled the rest of the time, either directed by the parent or maybe they are working on assignments given to by their teachers. So homeschooling looks very different now, I think, than it did a couple decades ago.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.